let's answer that $1,000,000 question. What in the world is real estate wholesaling, right? What does that even mean? I've talked about wholesaling multiple times in the YouTube channel, and a lot of people are, very, very familiarized with it, but there's a lot of people who are not, right? So what does that mean? Let's break it down. Let's go down to the basics of what real estate wholesaling is, or wholesaling real estate, is all about, right? Now, before I do that, I want to ask you to subscribe, like, and share if you like the content that I'm putting out there for you on a regular basis. Do me a favor, help me spread the word, and send this out to somebody who you think might benefit from all this stuff, right? The big purpose of this short series is to shed some light on what wholesaling is all about, right? What is it? How does the process work? What are the stages that we need to keep, in mind as we're going through the process? More importantly, what are the basics of this thing? So let's dive right into it, all right? What is real estate wholesaling? Three simple things, right? The simplest way to put it, right? Real estate wholesaling is the skill of finding motivated sellers. We are looking for a very small portion of the people who actually need to sell their property that are going to be a fit to do business with us, right? So take this number, right, as an example. We're looking for a very, very small percentage of people. So if 100 people wanted to sell their property, anywhere from 3 to 5 of those people are going to be selling their property to us. All right? It doesn't mean that there's not opportunity. It means that we have to put in the work and be strategic about how we market things, about how we reach people, and about how we place those, marketing dollars and that time allowance, right, that we have to really, get the most out of this prospecting process and lead generation process. So, but in a nutshell, is the skill set of finding motivated sellers. Now, let's clarify what a motivated seller is, okay? It's somebody who needs to sell their property, not necessarily somebody who wants to sell their property, who can list it up on the MLS. The property's super nice. They have all the time in the world. They have amenities and all kinds of stuff. That's not our avatar. Or the person that we're trying to reach out to and solve a problem for is going to be different, right? It's somebody who's struggling with their property. Maybe the property has physical distress. I mean, how many properties do you walk by or drive by on a regular basis that just look like they're in decay, right? The roof is beat up, the windows are falling off, the lawn in the front yard is overgrown, and there's just so much physical distress in the house. Somebody like that can't put their property in the market because it's not going to sell, right? Somebody who's buying property to live in, from a realtor, from a traditional sale, they don't want to fix stuff. They just want to go in there and then move in, put their beds and their furniture in place, and then, start living, right? They don't want to come in and then fix it for the most part. So these people, the people who find physical distress in their properties, have to find different ways of approaching it, right? And that's where we come in, okay? That's one type of motivated seller. Again, you have multiple different versions of that. Another one is going to be circumstantial distress, right? Situational distress. What's going on? Is there something happening where somebody needs to sell their property quick? Sometimes, unfortunately, medical emergencies happen, right? And somebody needs to liquidate their property. We have probate processes. People pass and then they leave their property to somebody who doesn't really want that property. Now they're going to sell that because they don't want that headache, right? They'd rather cash out. That's another thing. You have divorces. You have relocations. You have, people find jobs across the country and they need to move quick. That kind of stuff comes into play when we're talking about motivation, right? And having those conversations with sellers. But there are going to be countless scenarios where people are going to be motivated to sell their property and they're going to be a fit, right, to sell their property through us. Now, motivation is one thing, right? The conversations that we're going to be having with these people are all about problem solving. And that's where the skill set really has to be fine-tuned, right? It's all about problem solving. What can we offer these people in exchange for equity? Because we're not going to buy the properties at market value, right? We're not going to buy them at market value. We need to get them at a deep discount. So you might ask yourself, why would somebody sell me their property for 65% or 60% or 70% of what it's worth? Again, situational distress, circumstantial distress, you have physical distress, all kinds of ways, right? But we have to come in and then offer something in exchange. And usually, think about time and convenience, right? They either don't have the time to list the property in the market, go through that process, and they want to make it easy, right? So put yourself in that space for a little bit. How many times have you paid extra just for the convenience of doing something quick, right? Think about that. It's the same process when it comes to a property. A lot of times, the sellers are really not concerned about the actual cash amount. They just want to, get rid of the problem, move it quick, and then keep going with their lives, right? Which is perfectly understandable. Now, we are exchanging time and convenience for a profit. Your job as a wholesaler, when you're coming into these types of conversations or scenarios with motivated sellers, is to figure out how you can best help them. There's multiple different ways of structuring deals in a way that you can give them a lot of cash for their property. You make a big profit, and then your end buyer still has a lot of meat on the bone. The person who's actually going to buy the property to do their thing, and everybody wins. So that's how we're coming about this entire wholesaling process. Now, we're exchanging time and convenience for a profit here. Now, how do we get paid on these deals, right? Well, first off, you're not actually selling the real estate. You're selling your equity in that agreement, okay? You're selling your equity interest, your vested interest in that contract. So that means that we have to negotiate the property for a discount. We're not gonna, get under contract with a motivated seller and pay them retail, right? We can't. It's not how the model works. So we have to negotiate that property at a deep discount, create win-wins for everybody that's involved in the deal, and then really get creative with the way that we structure those deals, so we can have meat on the bones for the end buyers. So in a nutshell, right, you're not selling the real estate. You're not actually buying that property. You're negotiating that contract. And as you negotiate, you're creating equity in that deal. You're creating equity in that contract. And then what you do is you take that contract and you assign it to an end buyer because you're selling them your equity. Okay, so they're going to be paying you $10, $20, $30, $40,000 for your equity in that particular deal, right? That's really how it works. It's in a nutshell. Now, let me give you a quick breakdown of how the process kind of lays out, right? It may be a little foggy at this point, but bear with me here. The concept of wholesaling is very, very simple, right? And this is about as simple as we can make it. We start getting more creative and adding more deal structures and stuff like that as we progress and we become better at wholesaling, right? But what I'm about to go over right now is all you really need to understand to start rolling with your wholesaling business. So first, you have a motivated seller. Okay. And then you have you, right? You are the middleman, and then you're gonna have a cash buyer. And I know my graphics are out of this world, so you're welcome. So essentially, these are the parties, right? To start off the conversation. You have a motivated seller. You're gonna set up a purchase agreement with the motivated seller regarding their property. So say that the property on the market it's worth $200,000. So let's say the after repair value, the market value is $200,000. You're gonna try to negotiate that deal for say $140,000, right? So we're using those two numbers. Now what we have is an agreement between you and the motivated seller. Okay, so what do? You have the agreement with the motivated seller. Now you're gonna open escrow. This is the other party that you're going to be dealing with, right? So escrow is the title company. It's the party that really manages the transaction, that makes sure that all the contracts are in line, make sure that the property's even sellable, right? They'll run a chain of title, and they go through this whole long process of making sure that the cash buyer can actually take ownership of that property, and the assignment agreement and everything, all the documentation is lined up, so everything's transferable. That's their job. You don't have to understand, the ins and outs of how it works. Just understand that you have to give them a purchase agreement, and then you're going to give them an assignment of contract, all right, which is the document that allows you to get paid, all right? So what we do is we'll get a contract in place. We get a signature. Now we have an agreement. We have this property under contract for, say, $140,000, right? Because it needs repairs, and we need to put in some, a lot of work into it, or whatever the situation may be. We got it for $140,000 on that purchase agreement. Now you're gonna open escrow. So you send it over to escrow, and they start running title, the chain of title, ownership, and all that stuff. They start doing their thing. While they're doing this, you're gonna start looking for a cash buyer for that deal, okay? So you're gonna market out. There's multiple ways of marketing. You can email, you can go to meetups, you can use social media. I mean, there's so many different ways of marketing. In the Wholesaling Business Blueprint coaching program, I mean, we go through all of that stuff as well, right? So, but in a nutshell, right? Basically, you're putting a cash buyer on this deal. Now, you find somebody who raises their hand and they say, hey, listen, I want that property. Looks like it's a smoking deal. I want to buy it from you. What happens next, okay? Good thing you ask. The next thing that happens is that you're going to create another agreement with this person, which is the assignment agreement. Okay? So you're going to assign your rights and your equity of the original purchase contract to this cash buyer. Okay? Now keep in mind that you haven't really put any money out of pocket, right, for this deal. Maybe, if anything, a small amount that you did for the earnest money deposit. And there's ways of going around that. So, there's no money out of pocket here. You haven't bought the property. It's still going through the escrow process. So these people are doing their due diligence on it, and they're doing their work, making sure, again, that ownership is all squared and all good. What's going to happen here is that you're going to sell this assignment agreement for, I don't know, let's do $160K here. Okay, so you're going to sell that for $160,000. So you sell the deal to your cash buyer for $160,000. Not 16. 160K, okay? So the cash buyer takes the money out of his bank or his lender or whatever, and they give it to escrow at the close of escrow, okay? They give it to escrow, and then what escrow does, they'll pay out whatever the purchase price was for the seller, which in this case, you bought it at $140,000, and then they'll give you the rest of it, which would be the difference, right? In this case, it's $20,000 because you bought it at $140 from the seller. You sold it for $160. Now you're making $20,000. Now the cool thing is that the buyer, the cash buyer, is going to be paying for all closing costs as well. So they don't pay for closing costs. All transaction expenses are covered by the cash buyer as well, because they are still getting the property at a discount, right? So now the numbers have to make sense. The numbers have to make sense in terms of, okay, there's enough equity in the deal. If this property were to need $100,000, obviously those numbers wouldn't pan out, right? But that's where the math comes in, okay? That's where the analysis of the deal comes in. But in a nutshell, this is really how it works. So let me give you a clearer picture of this, because this is a mess. But it looks like this, right? So we have a motivated seller. We have the escrow title company or closing attorney, whatever, it depends on what stage you're in. And then we have your cash buyer. Super simple, super simple. 3 parties, and then you have you, right? So you negotiate again with the seller. You lock the contract up for $140. You sell it for $160. They pay title in escrow pays a motivated seller, and then they'll pay you, and then you make your $20,000 profit on that particular deal. 2 simple documents, and you can't. That's repeatable, right? So it's not a very, very complicated process. It's not a very complicated process. It's not it's not easy to do. There's a lot of tenacity. There's a lot of grit that has to come into play here, because you are going to get rejected by a lot of people. Like I said, we're dealing with 3 to 5% of the population that actually wants to sell, right? So 3 to 5%, not of the population in general, like of the people that want to sell. 3 to 5% are going to need to sell to us, and that's what we're looking for, right? That's who we're looking for. We're looking to really come in and craft solutions for these people. But this is what happens. This is your wholesale assignment fee. All right. This is what happens when you're wholesaling real estate. Same concept as traditional wholesaling, right? You get something at a discount, you mark it up, and then you make the profit of that spread. We call it spread. That's in between the purchase price and then the assignment price, right? So I hope that makes sense. This is a breakdown of the wholesaling process, what it entails, and now we're going to go over the 6 stages of the entire business model, right? The stuff that needs to actually go into play as you're trying to figure all this out and make all the pieces work. All right, so if you want the free program, right, absolutely free, it's an 8-video series on the entire wholesaling process. This is video number 1. Go to REIWholesaling.com and click on Wholesaling 101, right? Again, it's gonna be a free course. You get the full download of the PDF, the whole breakdown, and my cool graphics and all that stuff. Again, it's totally free, so don't miss the opportunity. Go over there, sign up, and get it done right away. Stay focused, you got this.